My lords, ladies, we are delighted to welcome you all today to our annual Global Unity Dinner 2019. You may perhaps wonder why we chose to give this event this name. Well, peace, unity, and forgiveness are so close to our hearts and highly cherished by us both. As when we were growing up in Sri Lanka in the 80s, we lived through the awful experience of war. The memories we hold of these times are quite devastating and have undoubtedly left scars in our minds. Our response was to our part to foster unity, peace, and forgiveness within societies. We are very grateful to this wonderful nation, the United Kingdom. Welcomed us with an open arm and enabled us to make this wonderful country our home. And we are so proud to say with utmost dignity, our country, United Kingdom. That's my country. We adore the history, we adore the tradition, the institution, the monarchy, and our British values. Our lives have unfolded so differently, if this great nation had not welcomed us during the midst of war. So many lives in Sri Lanka were lost, both sides. And it's extremely sad as the consequences are still felt today. That is not just true for Sri Lanka, but for each and every nation that has been or continues to tainted by the atrocity of war. Sadly, I do not foresee a day where conflict is not ragging in some part of the world. Unless, ladies and gentlemen, if we can change attitudes. Yes, it's our attitudes I'm talking about here. I define attitude as our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. And if we can change that attitude, I'm sure we can see a different world. I ask myself, how war can still happen in the 21st century? A world so advanced that we have created artificial intelligence. My humble belief is that the basic cause of such conflict is ignorance. Tharshiny and I are dedicating our lives to making a change in this world by fostering peace, unity, forgiveness through education. Through education. Education is the answer to combat this challenge. The education we are referring here is not the traditional education whereby one obtains a vocational or an academic qualification, but an education which underpins the laws of nature. And this is known as the inside-out education. This type of education will and must change mindsets, as this is the way the universe operates, ladies and gentlemen. This is the mode of operandi of this beautiful world. If we can open our minds to this new and admittedly a different type of education, then ignorance will be defeated. And this world will become an even better place. It's a wonderful place now. Even better place for our children and grandchildren. We must embrace this. And that's the purpose of this forum and this dinner and this group together. We offer our sincere gratitude to all of you here today for the great support you have extended us since we launched this forum back in 2017. And from the bottom of our hearts, we say thank you. Thank you. We are particularly appreciative of the unwavering support for this initiative offered by our Prime Minister, Theresa May. Since the inception of this idea, she has been incredibly supportive. Indeed, she has kindly taken the time to prepare a personal message to read out today. So humbly. It is a great honor and indeed a privilege for Tharshiny to share this message with you this evening as we launch the Global Unity Dinner 2019.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, before I read out the message from our Prime Minister, I would humbly request all of you to first of all forgive me, because this is the first time I read anything out in public, I think after my school year. So if I make any mistake, humbly request to forgive me, because it is very, very difficult to read out somebody else's message. If you haven't written it and somebody written it for you, it's not yours, it's somebody else's, so it's very difficult. And the expectations are very high. Talking about expectation, I was fortunate enough to meet our Prime Minister last Wednesday in one of the events, and while we were chatting, I was sharing with her how I'm going to read her message out next Monday. And I even told her how nervous I am about reading her message, and I told her I don't want to make any mistakes. And she kind of turned around and looked at me and like that, and then she said, "You will do a splendid job, do not worry." So even she had high expectation from me. So no pressure whatsoever, no pressure whatsoever. So there we go. On that note, the message from our Honourable Theresa May, our Prime Minister. I'm delighted to send my best wishes to everyone attending the Global Unity Dinner, and to congratulate Selva and Director Pankaj for organising such a worthwhile event, building on last year's successful Sri Lankan Unity Dinner. The shocking event in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday were a painful reminder of the impact that division and disunity can have. We have also seen other atrocities around the world, including the horrific attack on worshippers in Christchurch in March. Here in the UK, we only know well the pain such an attack can cause. There can be no place in our society for the wild ideology that drives and incites hatred and fear. I welcome all effort to promote unity in our country and around the world. By breaking down barriers between different communities, we can work together to defeat those who seek to divide us and destroy our value. When I first became Prime Minister, I spoke about how our country is a union not just between 4 nations, but between all other citizens. Every one of us, whoever we are and wherever we are from. Over the last 3 years, I have been honored to meet people from all walks of life who are helping to bring communities together and foster the common value we share. I know that if we stand together, we will have a great future. I hope that all you have a very enjoyable evening. Thank you very much for listening and thank you for your patience.
On that note, we love to invite our good friend and our mentor and my personal mentor, Dr. Rami Ranger, to come and share a few words about the collection. Rami Ranger, please.
Distinguished guests, Baroness, Weir, Member of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor once again to be here in front of you all, celebrating Unity Dinner. Selva has asked me to reflect upon his journey and my own journey. And I would like to start by paying a huge compliment to Selva and Tharshiny, a great role model for their community and now for Britain. Many people go to America to live the American dreams, but many people like me and Selva and Tharshiny and my wife Renu, we come to enjoy the British dream. I think British dream is much better than the American dream. When I was growing up as a single parent child, and my mother gave me a profound advice, loyalty. Loyalty is a prerequisite for success. You have to be loyal to your family, you have to be loyal to your college, school, you have to be loyal to your employer, and you have to be loyal to your friend, you have to be loyal to your everywhere. Loyalty brings huge dividend, and Selva and Tharshiny are a living example of their loyalty to their country, Sri Lanka, their loyalty to the Great Britain, their loyalty to their profession, education, their loyalty to friends like me, Mauricio, Ronel, Simon, Mike, there's so many, Muhammad, Amir, the list is endless. When we started 3 years ago, Mr. Suri, when we started 3 years ago, he was very nervous whether this idea will go forward or not. But tonight I can tell this idea is going forward and is going very forward. A family value. I am very proud to know Selva because he holds family values very high. He is loyal to his family. He is loyal to his parents. He cannot forget his father, late father. He is always using his advice. And that just shows the quality of a human being who remembers his mother and father as long as he is alive. So Selva, I'm very proud of your values. And coming to the values, the British values are important. If any immigrant wants to make a headway in this country, by refusing to adapt British value, you are going nowhere. Because you have to follow those values which made this country great, which made the people of this country great. And therefore, when I came to this country, I, like Selva, decided to accept whatever Britain had to offer me. It done me no harm. It actually made me a better human being and stronger person. So therefore, message is, like Selva, adopt British values. Those values have test the test of time. Commitment. Another most important thing is a commitment. No matter how clever you are, if you refuse to put commitment, you're not going anywhere. None of us are Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, or Yale, but we know that we have to put commitment to be where we are today, where we are. So, Selva, you're a man with commitment. Your progress has been phenomenal from a humble college now to have a university. I think George is here, George Ford, a great man. George, when are you going to be my friend? So there's a great friend all the way from Bolton, who is also playing a very important role in Selva's life. So that just shows that you have to have a commitment. Building bridges, that is Selva's hallmark. This dinner is designed to build bridges, because we have to make a conscious decision to build bridges. I build bridges with my Pakistani counterpart, because we now have one country, one queen. As a result, we have become one. Sinhalese or Tamil, they are living in this country, their next generation will be here, and their generation will be here. So we want to leave a country worthy of our children. And the best way to leave that country is where there are no division. There is no one separate us. And religion is a force for good. It is meant to unite us, it is not there to divide mankind. So those who use religion to divide us should be shunned, should be really put in their places, because they are using religion as a business, as something to divide a community for short-term gain and long-term losses. Now, finally, I will just give you a bit of warning about Indians. An Indian was flying with Einstein, who considered himself to be the master of everything, very intelligent man. So they were flying to Australia, and Einstein said to the Indian, he says, it's a long flight, and let's have a Q&A. And Einstein said to the Indian guy, I will ask you a question. If you answer me, I'll give you $500. And you ask me a question. I'll ask you a question. If you can answer, I'll give you $500. You ask me a question. If I can answer, you give me $5. The Indian calculated. He said, that's a good deal. He said, that's fine. We will go for Q&A. So Einstein asked him a question. He said, we are flying, I don't know on what flight. How far do you think moon is from here? Indian thought for a minute, and he said, no, I'm sorry, I give up. So he gave Einstein, he put his hand in his pocket, took $5 out, gave to Einstein $5. Then the Indian turned. The Indian said, Einstein, what goes up the hill with 3 legs and comes back with 4 legs? Einstein used all his brain, all his knowledge, everything. He couldn't find the answer. Then Einstein said, I'm sorry, I can't. So he gave him $500. Then I said, okay, before I ask you a second question, can you tell me who goes up the hill with 3 legs and comes back with 4 legs? And the Indian put his hand in his pocket and gave him $5. So the moral of the story is, never have Q&A with the Indian, especially when there's money involved. You know how to get money somehow or the other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ram.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nadir Hakim. I'm a very good friend of Selva and Tharshiny. What I'm going to tell you tonight, and I'll be very brief, is the object of why I'm here tonight. I'm invited once again, the 3rd year, to this Global Unity event. Now, last year, Selva did ask me, and as Rami said, Selva is so much respectful to his family, his late father, his late mother. I was always touched whenever I came to this dinner. to see the pictures of his father, grandmother. They're all here, which I think we should really learn from somebody like him and Tharshiny, how to respect our parents, obviously. This is very important. Because obviously without his parents, without my parents, we would not be doing what we're doing at this time. So, because of the love he's got for his father and mother, he said, because I'm a surgeon, but I do sculpt in my spare time. He said, can you please bring back my father? And I said, yes, of course, Selva, I'll do it, but I need pictures. He said, no problem. He came to see me, he gave me one picture. One AP picture, and I said to Selva, I'm sorry, but, you know, okay, I might be good, but I'm not that good to create or recreate a 3D out of one picture. Then I looked at the picture, and I really looked at it again and again, and I realized something so amazing about genes. I looked at this picture, and I looked at the picture of Selva. You'll be surprised, hopefully you'll agree with me, that's how much Selva at age 49, correct, looks like his father, but obviously 20, 30 years younger. And I said, okay, I've got it. So I took his pictures, the profile and all the different angles. I took the pictures of Selva and I cloned the father out of Selva. And I have to say, it was such a pleasure to see this sculpture come to life. And I'll say something which I think you will all agree. The sculpture you're going to see tonight will be there for many, many, many centuries to come. It will be all gone. But that sculpture will be there for centuries. And I'd like now, with Selva, or actually I'd like maybe to invite, if I may, Maurizio, prego, if you could come here. I want to unveil the sculpture with you, because I would like to have Selva and Tharshiny look at the sculpture from a distance, and hopefully they'll like it.
Nade, I also have, my father was close to his brothers and sisters, and he dedicated his life for them. And in fact, in the crowd today, my dad's brother and the extended family is here. And it would be good for them to join myself and Tharshiny. And if who can feel that thing that I'm going to feel shortly, they will feel. Is going to unveil this, you must need to know a bit about Nade. Who else he has done sculptures? There is a man here who has done his sculpture, which is George Holmes. And he's done a sculpture for someone really, really special. Any guesses, please? Of course you're George.
Somebody said you did first.
So who do you think? Who do you think? Show of hands to say Nade has done a sculpture. Any of us, please? I'm sure you would have done some research, some of you. But who do you think? And it would be nice to get the name from the floor, ladies and gentlemen. The Pope! Whoa, is that true? Let's give a round of applause for Nade.
I would add one other thing. I've done another Pope, which is an Indian Pope, who's a Sikh. And he happens to be here tonight, Rami Ranger.
Yes.
I think we have a Pope with a Sikh.
And the last one that day, something happened in a country called Korea.
King Jong-un.
There you go, King Jong-un. So this man is an incredibly special man who have created my father. And this doesn't happen for everyone. And you got to be gifted to do that. Over to you, Nani.
Thank you very much. And as you can see, the sculpture is covered by the two flags, which we insist on having the two flags, the Sri Lankan flag and the... So I'm going to ask Mauricio to unveil. So be gentle.
Thank you.
So now I believe that they've done, hopefully I was not here, but I think okay, now you're going to be able to see it from all angles. This is the trick. Otherwise you'll break your neck, at least you can look at it. See, if you look at the profile of Selva, I can tell you, it's unbelievable. The genes, we carry all our chromosomes from our great ancestors. And this is the proof. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nani. Wonderful.
Well, good evening, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. It falls to me to do something quite spectacularly special. That is to say, to be the first to announce the book launch of Selva's latest book, Thinking into Character. Now, just to return the favour to Selva about special people, as he clearly indicated in my direction, this is very clearly at the top. You'll see the #1 book in this particular field. And I said to Selva, how is it that you managed in your, this particular publication to achieve the #1 book? And he said, well, I haven't written #2 yet. I tried, that's right. Many of you will know, I hope all of you actually know, that Selva is very committed to the education of young people and, of course, of adults. And Selva, in this particular work, is trying to expand his own philosophy on education and on the way that character develops. The title is Thinking into Character. And he's attempting in this book very effectively to give guidance to individuals on how it's possible to develop, through education and learning, your own character to achieve the success you wish to achieve in life. And he asked me tonight, and I'm very privileged to do so, to conduct a little question and answer session around the book with Selva, to add a little bit of spice to the evening. So we're going to put the author on the spot here. If anybody's had a preview, you can drop your own question into here if you want to do. We'll take it from the floor. It's a dodgy mic, this, we'll take it from the floor. But I'm going to start really by saying, Selva, what inspired you particularly to put your thoughts down in this way? And what were the things that you were particularly thinking about in terms of thinking into your own character when you put this work together?
I think, George, it started with, when we started Regent Group, the purpose of it was the end of education is character. And I always was seeking to see what that is. And we didn't really know when students come and ask us, all right, that's your ethos, it's written there, but how do I do it? So it is always a question in my mind ever since we started Regent back in 2000. But then when I lost my dad in 2006, that's where things started to really question. There must be something out there. There's something different we need to be sort of knowing about rather than what we are seeing, what we are hearing, what we are learning. And that gave us the inquisitiveness, I would say. And then that made me too, I was fortunate enough to be in Professor Clayton Christensen in Boston, in Harvard. And that day, the penny dropped for me. And he said, Selva, you really need to understand who you are and how the world works. If you want to create something, you really need to know the laws of nature. I didn't have a faintest clue what he was talking about. But that sort of stayed. And that was then further validated by, I have got guests today from California, Bob Proctor and his son, who is flown all the way from the States to be here with us. And Bob actually explained that in a very, very simple manner. And that turned out to be, and just to finish off, Bob always said, Selva, a lot of people write a lot of books for other professionals. Let's write a book to everyone. And I think that's what we try to do. And there is a book there on your chair. Love to get your views. It's certainly not the product, but happy to learn as always. That's what is George.
Okay, so in terms of your... You know, everybody here is thinking the so what question. You know, so what can I take away from this book? You know, if you had to, you were pushed, and you're now about to be pushed. You know, what is the key message that you want everybody here to take away with them about what this is about for you? The key message.
Yeah, the key message is pretty basic. It's about the basic law. Every cause has its effect. And that's the physics. The reaction has its equal and opposite reaction. And if we expand that concept of cause and effect, and if you really want to change the results, and that is a effect, and the cause is your habits. You change your habits, your results will change. And sometimes what we tend to do is we want to change the results, and then we're trying to tinker the results. It wouldn't change. You've got to go and change the habits. And I think Stephen Covey did a huge amount of work on that, the 7 habits and the 8 habits and so on. So I think that's where Bob Proctor talks about, and Covey talks about that as principles, and we talk that as, in Bob's language, as laws of nature. So the one takeaway is change habits will change results. That's the only way to change results.
Okay, I'll be a bit sort of confrontational on this. You know, I'm quite happy with my habits. I don't really want to change my habits. What if I'm happy with what I do? When I'm happy with what I've got, what will this book do for me? Because I think it will do things for you if you're happy with what you've got. So.
Sure. I think if we are happy with our habits, that's wonderful. And I think you don't necessarily need to change any habits. But if you feel that, because the book really starts with what is your purpose of your life and why you exist. And then when you're setting up your goals and your existence of it, and then you say, look, how do I achieve that? Maybe some of the habits may not be serving you to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And at that point you say, you know what? If I really want to change those results, I could change the habit. It is a choice. It is not, we are not dictating this. It is an idea. This is not the entire answer. It is perhaps some part of the answer, and you will discover it. It's an inside-out education, George, as we talk about. It's incredibly internal. So it's not just what we do on outside in education. You know, you do an exam and you do various things, and that's okay. But this is an internal journey, learning about your intuition, your will, your imagination, your reasoning, your memory. These are intellectual factors which you keep on working on. And that's where Mahatma Gandhi was able to take 200 million people behind him. How did he do that? Perhaps inside our education.
Okay, I'll wait for time.
You can ask another question. You can ask.
If you haven't read it, you need to read it. It's a must. It's one of those things, if you're on a trip, on an airline, wherever, take it with you. If not, it's a Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, take it easy type of read. It's available from me at a discount. I'm operating as a sales figure on this. I can look after it for you. And I think Selva is prepared for a premium to sign it as well. So you're here, you've seen the book launch. It's the #1 book in its field. Wait for book number 2. I'm sure it's in there and coming out. And Selva, congratulations.
Let's do the grace, and then we'll have to start this. We are a bit behind time, but we will catch up.
So as always, when I come, it means that the food is coming. So ladies and gentlemen, please stand up for the grace. It's a Latin, it's very easy, very fast, very easy. It means whoever made the sky and the land, bless the food that we're going to receive. Latin is, quid fecit celum et totum benedicat cibum et potum. Amen.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and well, lovely to see you again. This is the third year, and I can see some very familiar faces here. And first of all, what can I say but thank you to Selva and Tharshiny. I mean, what an incredible event. They're so generous, so benevolent, and lovely, lovely people. And to be here this evening to share with them again for the third time is fantastic. And I'd have to say the statue there is absolutely remarkable. So thank you very much for hosting us once again and for looking after us. It's truly a remarkable evening to be here. And it's all about bringing people together, bringing friends together, bringing people together who sometimes don't see each other. I mean, there's some people in this room I haven't seen for a year. Sadly, there's some I see every other day. But there we go, that's life, isn't it? And I was asked to talk by Selva about British values, and it's very kind of Selva to ask me to talk about that, but I feel that I'm not particularly the best qualified in the room to talk about it, so I'll give it a shot. But first what I did was I did a bit of research on Google and looked at how the British government defines British values. And actually since 2014, teachers in our schools are compelled to promote the British values. There's 5 of them that have been laid out by the government. And I think the ones that we would all agree with. It's democracy, the rule of law, the individual liberty, mutual respect, and finally, a tolerance for all of those with different faiths. Now, I think they're quite good British values to have. And it started me thinking a bit more. And sadly, there's part of the UK, there's part of society that doesn't uphold and follow some of these values. A minority, some people who are brutish, prejudiced, intolerant, disrespectful, and have no concept of what we would call good manners. And clearly, they're not British values, and they're not things that we can support, and things that have no place here in our society. But British values are not just a factor of us having a British passport. It's more than that. Indeed, if you look around the room here, we have many different faces of what Britishness is. Different people, different ways of thinking, different ways that they do things. And being British, we can also be English, Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish, or indeed Sri Lankan, Indian, African, Polish, Italian, Pakistani, the list goes on. But the most important thing is that we're very inclusive in Britain, and that's one of the big British values that I think is most important, to celebrate the union of nations that come together to make us truly a great Britain. Now, our language can cause some issues. English is not the easiest language in the world to learn unless you were actually born here. And I was sorry to hear that we have some Americans here, so I was going to make a joke. I'm so sorry. You're not going to enjoy the next bit. But our language is difficult. It's very hard to pronunciate some of the words. I'm from Yorkshire, I have a problem, I can tell you. And some of the ways we say things. I do remember being in the US, this is a true story. I was in Florida, and there was a young lady I was talking to at the bar, as one does now and again. And she said, "Where are you from in England?" Now at the time, me and my wife were moving home. So I said, "I'm at no fixed abode." She says, "Gee, is that near Cambridge?" It's a true story, I promise you. it got even worse because I met a very senior American businessman who told me how much he'd enjoyed his visits to the UK. Mainly it was always in London. I said, did you never get out of London? He said, yeah, once I went to Leicestershire. I said, oh, brilliant. Where did you get to? And he said, Lugaborahuga. I said, where? He said, Lugaborahuga, which is Loughborough. But, you know, our language is complicated. And I was just reflecting on the fact that we're changing at the moment the leadership of our government. And it made me think a bit about this process of Brexit that we've been going through over the last couple of years, which has been a hugely decisive aspect of our society. I mean, most people were one thing or another, and it doesn't matter which you were, but it's divided us a bit. And I thought about the English language and use this analogy that I can say with the whole Brexit process, what we've had is past imperfect, present tense, and future conditional. And the future is conditional on us getting it right, moving forward, and uniting this country in something that we can move forward with and enjoy. But I look, well, what is a set of rules beyond the government set of rules that defines British values? And I remember being in the US again, and I remember someone telling me about an author, an American author called Robert Fulghum. In 1988, he wrote a book, and in there he said, all I really needed to know, I learned from kindergarten. And I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's a basic set of rules. Whilst you couldn't define them as being what British values are, I think it's a set of rules we could all work and live with. What I learned in kindergarten is really all I needed to know. And his rules are this. 1, share everything. 2, play fair. 3, don't hit people. 4, put things back where you found them. 5, clean up your own mess. 6, don't take things that aren't yours. 7, say you're sorry when you hurt someone. 8, wash your hands before you eat. And number 9, flush. Number 10, live a balanced life. It's okay to think a bit, but you must draw and paint, sing and dance, and play and work every day in balance. 11, take a nap in the afternoon. I think it's something I'm going to try start doing. And number 12, when you go out, watch for traffic, hold hands and stick together. 13's an interesting one. Goldfish, hamsters, and white mice all die. So do we. And 14, remember the first books we ever read, the basic books in the UK, they're called Janet and John books. The first word that we ever learned in those books was a word called look. And it's a very important aspect of life. So while they are British values, I think they're good values that we can all share. But, you know, I think 2 or 3 people in this room have heard me talk about an event in my life before, which I'm going to share with you. And a couple of years ago at a business dinner, I was sat at the table and I looked down at the place card next to me, and there was the name of someone called Buzz Aldrin. Now on the 21st of July, it'll be 50 years since the first people landed on the moon. And I remember being a young boy watching it on a very bad television, being incredibly excited. It's almost impossible to believe that someone could land on the moon 50 years ago. And I was so excited when I met Buzz that I spent the next 20 or 30 minutes just asking him questions about the moon. And he starts to look bored and he said, Simon, you're going to talk about the moon all night? And I said, I'm really sorry. And he said, well, let's talk about something else. And what would you like to talk about? Now this guy at the time was 87 years old. He's still alive. He was 87 2 years ago. And he said, let's talk about Mars, because I'm still a consultant to NASA, and I'm helping them with the prospect of their Mars landing. And for the next hour we talked about the Mars landing. So I just found it incredible that here was a man who'd done so much more than we can ever imagine. he was still talking about the future and looking forward. And as he left in the evening, he said, you know, I'll not be alive when we land on Mars. It'll be really interesting to hear if the things I've talked about tonight actually happen. And I thought, what an incredible man. So, in terms of British values, I'd now like us to look forward like Buzz Aldrin. I'd like us to look forward in this new world that we're going into, to a wonderful new democracy. Look forward to a continued liberty and freedom that we have. Look forward to a life full of mutual respect and decency. Look forward to a society that tolerates everything and everyone. In short, let's just look forward. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Simon. What a wonderful speech. Let's have another round of applause for the British values. That moves us quite nicely into a Sri Lankan story. So, can we get Rohan on the floor? See around? Can't see Rohan. Oh, there he is. He's getting his guitar. Rohan is a presidential candidate for Sri Lanka. So he may become the president in November 2019. So we wish him well. Probably he will be singing and dancing later. Let's over to Rohan. Perhaps we need one of the stands, I think. Rohan was we met Rohan through George and our partners, University of Bolton. And let's hear from the man with the guitar.
Corridors asleep, lie shadows dark and deep, my mind under their lips in confusion. I don't know what it feels, I can't touch what I feel, and I hide behind the shield of my illusion. So I continue to pretend that my life will never end, and flowers never bend with the rainfall. The mirror on my wall casts an image dark and small. I'm not sure at all it's my reflection. I'm blinded by the light of God and truth and right, and I wander in the night without direction. So I continue to pretend that my life will never end, and flowers never bend with the rainfall. No matter if you are born to play the king or pawn, the line is simply drawn to enjoy sorrow. So my fantasy becomes reality, and I must be what I must be and face tomorrow. So I continue to pretend that my life will never end, and flowers never bend with the rainfall. Thank you. In a way, I'm happy that my speech was not soon after the unveiling of Dr. Pankaj's father, because I got so emotional when I saw the statue being unveiled, the sculpture being unveiled, because my father is not in the land of living. He left the land of living in 2003. So all those memories gushed in, and had I had to make my speech soon after that, I don't think I would have been able to sing that song, because there was a lump in my throat, and then I would have been. Anyway, as it was announced, I have raised my hand to contest for the presidential election back in Sri Lanka, which will be held according to the constitution before the 7th of December this year. And the reason why is that the whole concept, the whole theme of this event that underlines building consensus, cohesion among people, and propagating peace, I sometimes sit back and wonder, is not just knowledge that can grasp the importance of peace and cohesion. You need to get into a different level. And if I may try to explain with the next 2 minutes, when Indira Nehru married Feroz Gandhi, she became Indira Gandhi. And in her autobiography, she writes, the most unfaithful husband that a woman could ever have is Feroz Gandhi. She was so unfaithful, he was so unfaithful, that even when I was carrying Feroz's child, he entertained other women in front of my very eyes. That is the greatest humiliation that a woman could face in her life. When I was traveling from Chandigarh after a political meeting, there was this messenger who came to me and told me that Feroz is no more. Feroz did not live beyond 48 years to see the light of day. When I heard this news, she writes in her autobiography, I was scattered into pieces. For the rest of my life, I couldn't gather these pieces together. The same person making two contradictory statements. How do you reconcile? How do you understand? And then when Barack Obama is elected president, he travels to Kenya. And then he wants to find out as to what happened to his father. And the grandmother takes to a concrete graveyard and shows, this is where your father's last remains lies. And then Obama writes in his autobiography, when I went there, for the first time in my life, I grew weak in my knees. And it took me 2 hours to get up, to be back on my feet. And he's talking about a father who abandoned him when he was just 7 days. And then Obama goes right. It is only a father that can connect a man to this world. He's writing once again about a father who abandoned him, left him just 7 days after he was born. How do you reconcile? I think no amount of knowledge will help you understand and read it between the lines. So it is only wisdom that will help you grasp what is in between. So it is a president that is with wisdom that Sri Lanka will need in order to bring this chaos to an end. There's a thick carapace of insensibility that has grown over the collective psyche of the nation of Sri Lanka due to corruption, mismanagement. I can go on, the list goes on. So to induce the necessary catharsis to this situation is the responsibility of any socially relevant individual or institute. So for me to have raised the hand to contest the presidency is exactly for that reason. To provide the necessary catharsis, provide the necessary vent to the people who are craving for a better Sri Lanka back home. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Rohan. And I would like to call upon Sir Anthony Selden to praise the event with some wisdom, please.
So I have a very funny office at my University of Buckingham, which is the university, as you all know, which is dedicated to the teaching of happiness. And I gave a title for the talk, which was going to be what we can learn from comedy. And so I prepared the speech, and I looked at, have a look at it now, just have a look. And I looked at it, and it says, what can we learn from tragedy? So I have been completely set up by my office, which they think is very funny, and they'll carry on thinking it's very funny until I sack them all tomorrow morning, and I'm going to have the last joke on that one. But on tragedy, let me just say, and I'm going to be your shortest speaker tonight. I'll be your shortest speaker tonight because I'm only 6'7", and we have had many giants here tonight, and I will talk for under 3 minutes, I promise. And I would say this. I would say this seriously, because it is I've been given this serious topic. If I could please, on that table. My first visit to Sri Lanka, to this beautiful country that I love deeply, was in December 2004, and I'd taken my cricket team from a school called Brighton College that had Matt Pryor as one of the cricketers, and we were playing the Sri Lanka under-19 side at Gore Cricket Ground. We left on Christmas Day 2004, and our sister school, Harrow, took over from us, and we all then know what happened. And to a boy in that team, we dedicated ourselves to coming back to the country, and we have been involved in all kinds of work to try and find ways forward from that tragedy. When I was at school myself, I wrote down the words of the Anglo-Irish poet William Butler Yeats, who said, "We cannot begin to live till we see or conceive of life as a tragedy." And I think that this is very, very wise and very true, because the good people in life, the winners, and in my experience of life, all the worthwhile people have had bad experiences. Every single person in this room has lost a parent, we've heard about that, lost a sibling, maybe lost a child, maybe lost possessions, lost cousins, lost things dear to us. And without exception, the heroes in life are the people who move on from that and who show courage, as Sri Lanka has shown, after the appalling and tragic and awful events of these recent months. And they have learnt in a way that is full of the very best values of dignity and courage. And I'm just going to finish with somebody who to me epitomizes everything we've spoken about. So at my university, Buckingham, last month, I interviewed somebody called Terry Waite. Now, the name will be known to some of you. He was the Archbishop of, by the way, it's very difficult to talk when people are talking in the background. I'm saying that not just for me, but for other speakers who are going to be following. So this man, Terry Waite, was the Archbishop of Canterbury's envoy, and he went to the Lebanon to try and negotiate the freedom of hostages who were being held in the Lebanon. And he himself was then captured and incarcerated, and for 1,763 days he was held in solitary confinement. And it was a terrible, terrible experience for him of fear and isolation. And he went back to Lebanon. And what did he do when he went back? Did he do what many people would do, which is to go back with lawsuits and to go back with murderous thoughts? No, he went back with one thought in his mind, with his captors. He wanted to embrace them. And if we can do that in our own life, if we can let go when bad things happen of indignation, of anger, of resentment, if we can just love and grow and heal and move on, then truly we learn from tragedy. And learning from tragedy is my message.
Thank you. We're just moving on to the next piece of the event, and this is, we're going to invite some great friends from California, from the US, the Unstoppable Foundation, who wants to come and talk us about the work that they do in US and in Africa, and there are some particular colleagues, I think Mohamed Amersi, who is very close to Africa, and I would like to pass the floor to you.
First of all, Selva and Tharshiny, thank you so much for inviting us here. It's such an honor to be here with you and all of you to meet new friends this evening. According to the United Nations, the single biggest contributor to alleviating extreme poverty in the world is access to an education. Millions of dollars currently are being invested by government agencies and well-intentioned organizations all over the world. And unfortunately, as they build these schools in third world countries, studies show in 3 to 5 years, the buildings are empty. Why are they empty? The reason they're empty is because you can build a school, but if you do not provide access to clean water, children are sick. If you do not provide access to nutritious meals, children are too hungry and they can't concentrate in school. And if you do not provide access to health care, they're too sick to even attend school. And finally, if you do not provide their parents with a way to create a sustainable income, they can't afford the school fees to keep their children in school. We have learned that building a school is not enough. If you do not address the key issues that keep children in school, then it will not work. It's not sustainable. Currently, we are now providing access to our 5-pillar sustainable model, which is called Sponsor a Village. And in Kenya and in Antri, India, we are currently providing access to education, clean water, nutritious food, and income training. Thank you. This is not charity. This is empowerment. And tonight, it is now my great honor and pleasure to introduce 2 of the Unstoppable Foundation's long-term partners who have been with us from the very beginning and whose partnership, hearts, and generosity have made a significant impact in Kenya. And just last week, they were with us in Kenya on the ground with me and my team, experiencing for the very first time what their generosity is making possible. Please give a warm welcome to Brian and Corey Proctor.
I took the podium away. No. Just a place to hide, you know. Rachel, fantastic. First of all, I want to tell you what an honor it is to have been invited here tonight by Selva and Tharshiny to be here with all of you. I first met Selva 3 years ago in Canada, and I knew the moment I met him that he was someone very special. His calmness, his strength, his vision is not only changing lives, it will continue to change lives. And I am so grateful to be able to call him a friend and to have been invited to be a part of this tonight with all of you. So thank you. As my husband and I and the company we are a big part of Unstoppable Foundation. And Unstoppable, the principles of Unstoppable are in direct alignment with what Selva is doing with his life, the unity and peace. And through donations, through the 5 pillar models, we are creating a life of sustainable changes in areas that need it. I had the honor of going to Kenya 5 years ago and going back again just 2 weeks ago or a week ago, and seeing for myself the dramatic change that has occurred in just 5 years. These communities are changing in enormous ways through knowledge and education, through this 5 pillar model of sustainability, of healthy food, clean water, healthcare, education, and opportunity. And it is an unbelievable experience to be able to witness it firsthand. So before I turn this over to my husband, I just want to say the 5 pillar model that is happening in these areas is critical to breaking the cycle of poverty and creating a safer and more just world for everyone. So, thank you.
You know, as you heard, we were in Africa just a little over a week ago, and we had been supporting the Unstoppable Foundation for years. You know, Rochelle, we've known each other for quite a while now, and the work they do is just, it has been spectacular. And being in Africa a week ago and actually seeing what is happening and transpiring is incredible. And just meeting a number of people here in this room and what everybody is doing and the reason why you're here is really inspiring. I'm going to tell you a little story about a girl I met in Kenya. We went to the first graduation of a college that was built for these students. And these are girls that were never able to go to school. These are girls that are married off when they're 12 and 13 years old. And their life is about fetching water for their village. This young girl, when we went there, she came up to me and she grabbed my hand and she held it for at least an hour. It was the most touching thing I have ever experienced. And she taught me about forgiveness. These girls are not only learning education, not learning, you know, knowledge. She was in a nursing program. She was not just learning nursing. They were learning leadership skills. And this is what is life-changing. So this girl told me her story. She had finished high school, and she comes from a family. Her father had passed away when she was very young. Her uncle ran the family. And there were 7 brothers and sisters. All of her older sisters were married off when they were 13. And she just refused to be married off. And it created a real problem in the family. The uncle was really angry at her. Her older sisters were angry that she didn't follow the same path. The chief in the village kind of went to bat for her, and he had heard about this Unstoppable Foundation and the We College, and he went to bat to get her into this college that was about 3 hours away. And I guess the college responded. She was able to apply, and they accepted her. If she got in there, it's a full scholarship, so it was paid for. She didn't have to worry about it. When she went, it was the leadership skills that really changed her life. You know, she was bitter to her uncle. She was bitter to her older sisters. And I don't remember exactly how the quote goes, but when you can't forgive somebody, it's like drinking poison and trying to let it, hurt somebody else. And she learned about this forgiveness, and she really took it in. She went back home, and she talked to her uncle, and she talked to her older sisters, and she told them how she forgave them and what she was learning in this school. And it changed the dynamic of her family and her community. Her uncle and her older sisters now are her biggest supporters, which is just spectacular. And this girl is going through nursing, learning leadership skills, and she's going to go back to her village and be the change in that village. And her uncle and her sisters now see it. And this is what that whole giving can do. When we can give freely to communities that we're not actually involved in, we help, but we're not there. But when we can change a piece of the world anywhere, in some way, the power that will have globally, and this is what Selva and Tharshiny are all about, the power that will have globally will change this world, and it will make it a much better place for all of us to live in.
Brian, Corey, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sean. We heard from not just Brian, it's like hearing from Bob Proctor for me, who I know, I adore, and learn. Let's move on. Time is of essence, I know. We just like to move on to a conversation now with three individuals. Mohammed Mercy, Atul couldn't make it, so I'm just going to call upon somebody spontaneously. And Casey Suri, Casey, and who shall we go? Let's go for Sunrise Radio. Let's go for Tony Bett. Let's have a conversation. It wasn't expected. He's going to come. He's going to say a few words. Round of applause, please, for a quick conversation about unity.
Very much for organizing this event. Second to Rami Ranger for introducing this lovely chap years ago. And thirdly to previous speaker Simon Blackton, just to let him know that I'm from Loughborough. And my family in Punjab call Loughborough as Loughborough. So if that's a new one, he can add on to the dictionary. On a serious note, at present, in the name of nationalism, populism, or religion, there have been many conflicts. When these forces take the ugly clothes, it becomes terrorism, which kills so many innocent people when they even go to pray in temple, churches, mosques, or synagogues. But amazingly, in the present history of the mankind, never before we have been so socially connected. But we are so apart by these forces. The reason why this is happening, this is maybe social inequality, lack of social housing, lack of education, poverty. There are several reasons. But these, we have to act upon those. Better education, people like Selva is providing it. Social justice and fairer capitalism. But all of us here, individually and institutionally, we can play a part. Religious leaders can preach peace, not hatred. There are a lot of politicians are here. They should do their bit. Unite all of us rather than dividing us. Education should teach tolerance. And we should learn to live in harmony. And we should all do our bit and learn to live and let live. And enjoy the evening, rest of the evening. And thank you. I pass on to my dearest friend, Sunny. Thank you.
Hi. Selva, that was a surprise. I caught your eye just at the wrong time and I got pulled up because my name certainly wasn't on the programme. My name's Tony Litt, I'm the Managing Director of Sunrise Radio, the UK's #1 Asian commercial radio station. This is our 30th year. My father was 10 years old when he came to the United Kingdom. Couldn't speak a word of English. And as he was growing up, he saw the difficulties that his father had, my grandfather. We lived in an extended family, a lot of Asian families do. And I was extremely close to my grandfather. I lost him 7 or 8 years ago. Well, I lost him in 2011. I still feel like I have him with me every day of my life. I was just talking about that to somebody just the other day. And my father went on this journey, knowing that his father came here as an immigrant. He brought his young family with him. And my grandfather was working in a bank in India. But like many immigrants, when they come to, not just to the United Kingdom, to many countries across the world, they're doing the jobs that the indigenous population or the jobs that are required to be done that nobody else wants to do. So when I look at it, and when my father looked at it, and as the generations, and when I always carry myself on what I'm going to do in my life, I always look at, I sometimes think, could I have really done that? We've gone through those real sacrifices, get called those difficult names, and you know, all the prejudices and all the difficulties that they faced. But you know, sometimes I see the youth of today, they'll say, oh, that's a racist, or that's prejudiced, or you know, that's a difficult hurdle that somebody's putting in front of me. Not compared to that generation, what they went through and the difficulties that they faced on a daily basis. You know, 15, 20 people living in a terraced house, which was a common place in the United Kingdom for the immigrant population. But I remember nearly 20 years ago, there was a massive event that happened within South Asia and India, an earthquake. We raised a large sum of money from our listeners, and I presented a check to Prince Charles at the Swaminarayan Mandir with Lord Noon, who's no longer with us, who was another great man. And there was a picture of that, and I sent it to my grandfather. And just to show how proud he was, and there was no chip on his shoulder, next time I went to his house in Kent, as I looked back on the doorbell, I looked to my left, and in his window, facing outwards, was my picture with His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, and it just showed that he held no ill will at all. You know, just talking about, like many others today, that when you come to the United Kingdom, you have your cultures, you have your values, and they're fantastic, and we shouldn't forget any of our cultures and values, but we can, you know, unite the country by sharing what we do. I've then gone on to do many other things called events like the Asian Lifestyle Show in central London. We've gone on to do many other events at the radio station, but the biggest thing, and I was speaking to the lady sitting next to me, Maria, today, and I just remember one thing that my father said to me when I joined the business 20 odd years ago. He said to me, son, when you walk in this building, you leave your politics outside, you leave your religion outside. We are there for the entire British Asian community. Doesn't matter what their politics or what their faith is. We're there to give them news and information and put a smile on their face on a daily basis, and to be proud to be Asian and proud to be British. And that's where unity starts and finishes. Thank you.
After such a rich sharing of experiences, it's my task to be the third. So being here today reminds me of a visit that I made to Syria about 6 months back. And I visited the war-torn town of city of Aleppo. In many ways, Aleppo was very much like London is today, or Colombo is today, a thriving city, diverse, with all sorts of merchants there, and really the capital of the Levant. And I saw something that really affected me, and this was the story of Sultan Suleiman, who was the Sultan of Aleppo. One day the Prime Minister came to visit him and said to him that, look, I'm being pressurized by Jews and Christians in our beautiful city, that they are being discriminated by the Muslims. The Muslims are also asking me to eject the Christians and the Jews from this city. What should I do? So the Sultan thought for a minute and he asked the Prime Minister, come back tomorrow with flowers of different colors. And of course the Prime Minister didn't know where this was going. Next day he shows up with flowers of different colors. And the Sultan tells the Prime Minister, look at each of this flower. In its own right, the flower is very beautiful. Put all these flowers together in a bouquet and see how beautiful the bouquet is. Each flower brings out the best in the other flower. So this is a lesson for diversity. A community that is diverse, where people of different color, different religion, different backgrounds can all add to the richness of the community. And this is what I think London represents today. When thinking about questions like this, I also ask everyone here in the room, when you were born, how many of you were able to choose your color, your name, your parents, or your religion? And so why is it that as adults, you have to go fighting and killing people to defend an identity which is artificial and which you had absolutely no choice whatsoever in selecting? I also ask, have any of you ever heard of somebody dying, going to heaven or hell, and coming back on earth and saying, by the way, the only religion that is going to go to heaven is Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or Hinduism? No, I haven't heard of anyone coming back and saying that this is the right path to get to heaven. So why is it that all of us fight to say that we are special, that we have a license and we have a ticket to heaven, and everyone else is wrong? And to sign off on this, I want to share with you 3 or 4 aphorisms, which I think have been very important to me. These are that it is easier to educate a child than to repair an adult. Secondly, it is wise men that build bridges and fools who want to build walls. Thirdly, the power of love will always overcome the love of power. And fourthly, he that has read only one book is very dangerous. Selva, Tharshiny, what a wonderful evening, and you have really epitomized what it means to be leaders in society. You are doing so much to promote diversity and humanity. You are doing so much in such a selfless way to improve the lives of our communities here and to ensure that you are trustees for the future generation. Thank you very much.
We're just going to fast forward and invite Paul to come and join us and say a few words. Paul was always close to Sri Lanka, and Paul can say more about it. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Selva, Tharshiny, thank you so much for having us this evening. What a wonderful evening it is. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Paul Scully. I'm the Member of Parliament for Sutton and Cheam. I'm the Conservative Party's Vice Chairman for London. And so, as Selva said, I'm also the all-party parliamentary group chairman for the Tamil community as well. We're having a rich number of Tamils in my area of South London. You've given us a massive theme to talk about today, global unity. That's not something that you can easily tackle in one evening, but actually what has happened from everybody that has spoken today, we've found different ways of achieving a sense of unity. Now that may be, as Selva started talking about, Rohan spoke about as well, about Sri Lanka. And I really am looking forward to the point that we can get to a truly unified Sri Lanka. We had a moment, unfortunately, in a real tragedy when we saw the massacre on Easter, when the whole of Sri Lanka, the whole of the world came together for a few moments, for a few days. And it didn't matter whether you were Tamil, whether you were Sinhalese, whether you were Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, or Jewish, or no faith at all. For that moment, actually there's just a collective solidarity for the people that have been targeted, for the families that have been targeted, because of course there were so many children involved being Easter Sunday services. The WhatsApp groups, the social media, these kind of things, actually were used for a power of good because there were severe blood shortages in some of the hospitals across Sri Lanka. And for a while, the diaspora community here, the people in Sri Lanka, were actually putting out that call, please donate blood. And isn't it wonderful, therefore, although it's such a shame that it has to be in the face of such a tragedy, it's wonderful to see how people can come together, but we should be able to do it without having that sense of backdrop. And as chairman of the APPG for Tamils, I actually go to Geneva a couple of times a year, typically to talk to the United Nations Human Rights Council. And I really welcome the resolution, the renewed resolution 40/1, when I hope that we can get reconciliation, that we can truly come together on that wonderful island of Sri Lanka. Because as the old quote goes, justice delayed is justice denied. And I think that people do need to have a sense of ability to move on that island, to close that dark chapter in the island's history. But nonetheless, we need to allow people in Sri Lanka to be able to trade, to be able to prosper, and to be able to come together. And I'm really looking forward to that. But we also heard from Michelle and the Proctors about how they are unifying Kenya and other parts of the world through breaking barriers. And education is so important in those parts of the world as it is here in the UK. And Selva, what you're doing with the Regent Group is absolutely amazing, again, through education. I sit on the International Development Committee, and I've been to Kenya a few times myself, and seen the schools there. And I've seen the barriers, especially that young girls have to education, where it may be because of their nomadic lifestyle, that their parents are taking them through, they're not able to settle in a school. It may be simple things like lighting around the school, so that young girls in particular can feel safe from sexual attack, from violence, from harassment, and just the ability to get out and learn. It might be the cost. It might be the poor girl that was actually in Samburu Wildlife Park in a school there, who actually was just simply trying to get water for her family and was attacked by a crocodile. It's those things that, frankly, if you're in a high school in London, you don't think about. But these tragedies do happen. So thank you for everything you are doing in Kenya and other parts of the world, because it's so important that we do break down barriers. But it's also about shared values. And I know I won't speak for too long, like Anthony Selden was saying, because not only do you have your dinner coming up, but it's also a dinner and dance. So when we talk about British values, which do ties together, Simon, you spoke about values that turned into sort of life lessons as well, like a good Baz Luhrmann song. And I remember there's one, my favourite, which I hope you'll all get to later on in the dance section, is Dance Like There's No One Watching. I think that's a really important one, isn't it? But we do have shared values. There are people here that I've seen, friends from Sri Lanka, from India, from Italy, from other parts of the world, and actually what you tend to find, that people that come to London, whether it's from other parts of the country, like Bolton, or other parts of the world, you typically come to London because of the opportunity that we have here, because of the jobs that we have here, because of the education that we have here, because of the lifestyle that one of the greatest cities, if not the greatest city in the world, has to offer. And isn't that, if you're going to pick up your life and come thousands of miles to London, that surely means you are truly an entrepreneur. And it's those values that are so, so key. My father was born in Burma, so I have a very simple, I used to do maths, I was pretty good at maths, I was rubbish at politics at school, which obviously set me up in a good career. But my maths, my simple equation, which my father instilled in me, and you may recognise this, Selva, is if you have a good education, if you couple that with working really hard, if you add the wider family network, as we heard earlier on, so you don't have to rely on anybody apart from your extended family. You don't have to worry about the state, you don't have to worry about other people looking in, or even charity. But you've got your friends, you've got your family. That gives you the best chance of success, of being able to survive, to be able to thrive, and allow your family to prosper. It's those shared values that I think that brings us all together. And so these things are the things that everybody in this room, and maybe 2 or 3 degrees of separation from this room, we have the power to inspire. We have the power to share that motivation, to be able to speak to decision makers, policy makers, apart from myself clearly, to be able to make that change that is going to break down those barriers, and to be able to allow us to bring that global unity that you were talking about. And finally, I would just say that we need to look at what binds us. We've heard about some tragedies around the world. We've heard about some good news stories, but bad news stories as well. I think the worst moment of my 4 years of my time as a Member of Parliament so far was the day that Joe Cox died. So this is one person. Now Joe was was shaping up to be a wonderful parliamentarian. And she was tragically killed on the streets of her constituency. And we've heard from Sri Lanka, whichever stats you believe, that's maybe 8,000 or 40,000 people that died. 10 years ago, the civil war ended there. And as I say, that has not yet completed its reconciliation. We've had one person die that we need to learn that lesson from. And what Joe said, which resonates through Parliament every day, and I see her plaque behind the Labour benches every time I sit in Parliament. And what it says, that we need to look at what we have in common, not what divides us. And that is the life lesson that will actually truly bring about global unity. Selva, Tharshiny, thank you very much, and do have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Paul. And just to finish off the evening, may I call upon Ronald to talk about something really special to round up the whole Sri Lankan story by recognizing someone who is very special.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to read you an obituary. Sir Desmond de Silva was an extrovert and larger-than-life barrister who was sought after by the rich and famous and feared by those being prosecuted by him. A bon vivant and good-natured man, in a career spanning 5 decades in the courts of England and abroad, the immaculately dressed 78-year-old carved out a unique reputation as a superb defence counsel in murder and treason trials in Commonwealth countries, and defending impossible cases for high rollers closer to home, earning him the label the Scarlet Pimpernel. De Silva was tall and a dandy and patrician in his ways. He became one of the first £1 million earning barristers. After more than 250 international murder trials, his particular expertise lay in white-collar fraud, extradition, human rights issues, importation of drugs, money laundering, tax and VAT fraud, espionage and terrorism, producing an eclectic list of clients and cases. I call this man a friend. However, his greatest legal achievement was perhaps his role in the 2002 arrest, bringing to justice for war crimes Charles Taylor, the former president of Liberia. Being then the only British QC appointed by the United Nations as chief prosecutor of an international war crime tribunal, De Silva managed to secure the arrest of Taylor as he tried to flee to Nigeria, as well as his transfer to Freetown, Sierra Leone. For reasons of regional security, he then had Taylor transferred to The Hague for trial before the International Criminal Court. The arrest sends out the clear message that no matter how rich, powerful, or feared people may be, the law is above them, he noted at the time. Taylor's conviction in 2012 for war crimes and crimes against humanity during the brutal 10-year civil war and fight for control of blood diamonds was the first of its kind since the Nuremberg trials. Desmond De Silva was known for his razor-sharp mind, his eloquent and measured delivery, and thorough cross-examining. His reputation preceded him, making him the preferred barrister of sports stars, celebrities, and the well-heeled, becoming known in some quarters as football's greatest defender after representing a number of high-profile players, as well as John Terry, who was acquitted of charges relating to nightclub fracas in 2002. De Silva's clients included the former England rugby player Lawrence Dallaglio and the football managers Harry Redknapp and Ron Atkinson. He successfully defended the Wimbledon goalkeeper Hans Segers, who alongside John Fashanu and Bruce Grobbelaar was charged in a football corruption and match-fixing trial. Away from sporting celebrities, stars such as Dame Shirley Bassey and astronaut Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, sought his help. He advised Margaret Thatcher when her son got himself in the spot of bother, and also defended Lord Brocket, a polo-playing friend of Prince Charles, in his £4.5 million car insurance fraud case, and was involved in Roger Levitt's City fraud trial. He even saved the life of a journalist who went on to become Kenya's Prime Minister. De Silva's adventurous life earned him many admirers, but also enemies. He was shot at overseas, imprisoned, and there was an attempt at poisoning while fighting for justice. One night, returning to his hotel, he poured a glass of brandy. His penchant for brandy alerted him to a slight discoloration. Analysis later showed that the brandy was poisoned, and he was saved from an excruciating death. Born in the former British colony of Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, in 1939, in the early months of the Second World War, George Desmond Lawrence De Silva was one of two children born into a privileged family of prominent legal and political figures. During the war, his grandfather, a lawyer and one of the founding fathers of Sri Lankan independence, was a member of Lord Mountbatten's Ceylon War Council and was a regular visitor to the De Silva household, known as Uncle Dickie to Desmond. His father, Frederick, also a barrister, went on to become his country's ambassador to France, and once arranged for Desmond, still in his 20s, to meet President de Gaulle. Desmond had an idyllic and privileged childhood, swimming in clear rock pools formed by estate waterfalls, visiting the family's rubber and tea estates, and partaking in shooting parties, while meeting visiting movie stars, including Laurence Olivier, his wife Vivian Lee, and Gregory Peck. In 1951, Desmond went to board at Dulwich College Prep School in London before returning home and attending Trinity College, Candy, which functioned on English public school lines with English staff. His father also wanted him to master the Sinhalese language in case he wanted a political or legal career at home. De Silva's memoir, Madam, Where Are Your Mangoes?, a reference to a transactional misunderstanding around 1967 between a fellow barrister and a prostitute working in Freetown, Sierra Leone, was published to critical acclaim. In it, he threatened to sue a newspaper diary column for reporting that he spent £400 a week on Armagnac. Outrageous slur that damages my reputation, he griped. I spend much more. He later inherited the island of Taprobane off the coast of Sri Lanka and enjoyed his luxuries while travelling in West Africa. On one occasion, he had foie gras flown in to his hotel explaining, if you're living in a foreign country, you owe it to yourself to make life as comfortable as possible. Any fool can be uncomfortable. Knighted for services to international law in 2007, he became a Privy Council member in 2011. Now, there are two quotes which I want to read before announcing this Lifetime Achievement Award. Sir Desmond is one of the most substantial global entities that Sri Lanka has ever produced. Today, we are ruled by politicians who have limited ethics, education, and experience. We leave our future and the future of our children in their hands. We do this while we let the most accomplished Sri Lankans, like Sir Desmond, save the world. I was a pupil in his chambers, a man wrote. It was said he would sometimes weep in his closing speech to the jury. He was a great character. I wept when I heard the news of his sad passing. Tonight, my guest is Victoria de Selva, his daughter, who's seated next to me. And on behalf of all of us, we recognise a lifetime of achievement for a very great man, Victoria de Selva.
Selva and Tharshiny for hosting such a wonderful night for all of us. It is my first time to one of your dinners, and hopefully not the last. But it's just wonderful to hear about the amazing things that you're promoting tonight. The themes of tonight are quite clear to us all, and they are education, compassion, and of course unity. And I think these are three themes, or three things that the world really needs more of. Not just Sri Lanka, but the rest of the world. And Sri Lanka is a good starting point. And I hope to see more of it, and I'm sure we will, through your efforts. Thank you so much. And thank you also so much for remembering my father and the amazing things that he did. And he was also someone who stood up for those three things. And so it makes a lot of sense that he's been remembered in this way. Thank you so much.
में कल खिलते हैं जब से राह पे मिलते हैं मेरे यार